And here's where we get a really shocking scene, and punctuated nicely by um, just some wonderful lines by Q. And now we see but through a glass darkly. Yeah, it gets shocking. It gets worse. We see some interesting little artifacts, and what I wanted with these screenshots is to show some real nice Easter eggs here. Now, obviously, this is a Cardassian outfit. It looks different to the Cardassian armor that we'd seen in Deep Space Nine, for example, with this kind of bronzing down. You would assume if the entire universe has changed, then clothing would change as well. And it is a little bit different, but it's unmistakably Cardassian in its design. We also see this. Now, this took me a while to work out what this was. This is the torchbearer that we see in the very first episode of Discovery. So interesting that what we're seeing in Picard is an attempt to kind of reconcile the various different kind of Klingon looks. Some people might not like that. I don't mind it. I mean, they could probably easily pass that off as not being Klingon, but why would they do that? But yeah, that is the torchbearer. I think it has a different name than torchbearer, or light bringer, or light bearer, or something like that. But that's Klingon from Discoverse. We also see some weapons. This looks like a very first contact era assault rifle. It's not. It's actually the rifles that Seven used in my favorite episode of all time, Stardust City Rag. I'm not sure what that one is, although for some reason I'm thinking that it might be some sort of Jem'Hadar. But I mean, the mount, it looks Starfleet in design. Well, here we see some more Klingon weapons. So we get more of that kind of attempt to reconcile the disparate kind of canons or looks. But that's very much a TOS movie era disruptor that we first saw in Search for Spock. Again, another little tidy reference to Search for Spock. And here, a Romulan disruptor pistol. I can't remember. That looks to me like that's a disruptor pistol from the Kelvin universe, from the 2009 Star Trek movie. I could be wrong. I am not 100% sure. We see a lovely glaring reminder to season 1. Cheers, guys. The Jadvash disruptor rifle and a dagger. This weapon, I'm unconfirmed. I'm going to have to look a little bit harder on the archives for this. And I've read it online that this could be Shinzon's knife from Nemesis. I watched Nemesis the other night trying to find the actual knife. I'm not sure if it is, because the blades are a little bit closer together and there's a little bit more symmetry, and obviously symmetry makes sense in Nemesis. So I'm not 100% sure, but let's speculate for a second that it is Shinzon's knife. There's blood on this knife. So what if in this universe, General Picard, one of his famous victories is killing himself? Because you would imagine the Romulans would probably, in their desperation, try and clone Picard and try and replace him to potentially, save them from war. So that whole storyline could actually still be a thing. And Picard in this timeline just gleefully killed Shinzon, didn't really care about it. And, the voice triumphed over the echo in this universe. Picard, as you can imagine, all this is horrifying. It gets worse. Yeah, there's a skull collection in this room. Oh my god. Now, interesting here, and we see proof that this could be the Grand Nagus himself. I'm not sure if it's going to be Zek or someone else, but we see the Grand Nagus' staff later on as we kind of pan out and get a bit of a wide on this room. Some interesting things that I didn't realize anyway. I did not know that Ferengi actually had bones in their lobes. Obviously, we have cartilage in our ears, but they are aliens, I guess. So, okay. Interesting. I guess the reason why they had to do this was because, I mean, it's such a distinguishing feature of the Ferengi, right? That if you just took that off, you wouldn't really know who it was. So I don't know. I don't mind it. I'm not bothered by it. But we also see a Borg skull as well. And I want to talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute. We've got more skulls to go through, as you know. But some interesting things here is just to see the depth of assimilation in Borg. It's quite shocking, really. They literally embed themselves into the actual bone of the victims. Yeah, awful stuff. But not as bad. Picard just murdering everyone and having a skull collection is just another level of terrible. We see more skulls. We will get to these in a second as well, because Q is going to relive some of Picard's conquests to the absolute horror. And there we see what I think, anyway, is the Grand Nagus staff, which also looks like it's broken. So what if in this timeline Picard snapped the staff over his knee and then, I don't know, killed the Nagus with it? I'm far too quick to put these horrific fantasies together. Awful. So yeah, we see more. There are some skulls that I can't actually make out. There are two that don't get spoken about at all. This one here, I have no idea what this is at all. And maybe that's the point. This one looks like a Lurian, Linus from Discovery. Lurian? Is it Lurian or Saurian? Saurian? I think it's Lurian. But yeah, maybe it even is Linus or one of Linus's descendants. That's shocking. Linus deserved better. So Q goes through the history of some of these skulls. There are actually plaques here as well. This skull, yes, is Gul Dukat. And yeah, I mean, Gul Dukat, one of Star Trek's great villains, but in this universe was actually responsible for the synthetic body that Picard has. How I feel about that synthetic body being mentioned and brought up again, I'm not sure if it was needed. But again, I mean, I think that just kind of highlights and further punctuates just how different the Cardassians are in this timeline, where, you know, the Cardassians are an ancient race and with their technology have been able to create golems and, you know, massively advance themselves in cybernetics and things like that. And, you know, Picard just killed him, you know. So Gul Dukat was executed after a hell of a fight to take the Cardassian capital. The next skull we see belongs to General Martok. And I have to say that this skull, I don't know if this is just because they said it's Martok, but for me, it even looks like J.G. Hertzler's face. I don't know. It just for some reason, it just looks like his face. It's probably not even remotely similar to his face. And I'm not 100% sure if the ridges are. I'll have to go and look at a picture of Martok in more detail. But yes, this was Martok, killed in combat after a bioengineered virus decimated Kronos. Oh boy. And this skull belonged to Sarek, beheaded on the steps of the Vulcan Science Academy by Picard in front of his wife and son, who we know is Spock. Dear God. Interesting. I don't know if anybody else picked up on this, but this skull looks green. It looks green in complexion. It's very pale. It's very kind of hard to notice. I think the Q's hand kind of helps give the contrast and kind of give it away. But if we compare this skull to, I mean, let's assume that this is a human skull. Massive difference. Which I find interesting. I find it interesting that Vulcans have green skulls. Now we know that Vulcans and Romulans have green blood. I don't know why that would mean that they would have green bones. I mean, we have red blood, but our skulls are not red. I don't know. Science. But I'm assuming that this has been done from a production standpoint to just kind of put a bit of an alien spin on this skull and kind of make it stand out. But yeah, absolutely horrifying that it is Picard. Going back to some in the chat. So we had one person suggest that this skull could be a Jem'Hadar. It doesn't look like a Jem'Hadar, does it? I mean, Jem'Hadar don't usually have wings out the sides of their heads. I think someone also mentioned that it could be species 8472. That could be plausible, although I don't think species 8472 wear jewelry, so I'm not sure where that would have come from. I don't know. I want to quickly touch on our little Borg friend here, because and I am obviously jumping the gun a little bit, because we find out later on, who is getting the Eradication Day treatment. But what do we know about the Borg? Well, we know that the Borg are a collective. There are no individuals in the Borg, and all of the skulls in this room are, I mean, with the exception of the two at the back and this Borg, very prominent characters in Star Trek lore and Star Trek history. Grand Nagus Zek, let's just assume it is him. Gul Dukat, Martok for the Deep Space Nine trifecta, and Sarek, who's a massive character in Star Trek. So these two, I think it goes without saying that if they are hung up to display in this room, who is this? Who does this belong to? Which character could this be? And I'm getting ahead of myself here. I want to go back to this skull here. Yeah, who could it be? Now, actually, yeah. Heavy Rads, welcome. Hugh. Could it be Hugh? That's very, very interesting. Now, the eyepiece is in the right place as well, so it would make sense. We're not sure, what happened with Hugh in this timeline, but still, I think it's a bit of a it's a strange thing to do, because the Borg have no individuals, so there would be no generals. So what did Picard just did Picard just did he just pick a drone? Did he just execute one drone and just say, "Hey, I'm just going to put you on my mantle, and I'm going to, alongside some of my most famous kills"? This Borg must have put up a real fight. This Borg must have challenged Picard. But the confusion is that the two don't seem to. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. Just in my head anyway. Thomas, no, not Hugh, because Picard would have sent a virus to kill the Borg. Well, maybe that's how the Borg were decimated. But the thing is we do see, as we go forward, this shot, which is wow. Now this shot shows me, or it shows us, the CSS. What's the name of the ship? It is the World Razer. The World Razer, the CSS World Razer. My goodness. Now there are some things that I want to point out here, because I absolutely love this this piece of art. It's a little, the way it's been shot, it looks like an oil painting. But there are some things that I really, really like here. And I think the thing that Star Trek in the past has been very guilty of doing, particularly with alternate timelines, mirror universes, they'll just take the ship that we know and just kind of put some lines on it or a sword on it. But here we see that this future is so different that even our ships are just completely alien to us. I mean, but alien, but in a way that is just very unnervingly close to what we know. So the first thing, and I had to really kind of get a look at this, is it does seem that the primary saucer is very, very different. So we've kind of got this bowed-in section where it kind of comes in on itself, and it's got lots of edges to it. It looks sharp, and that is a constant that we see in this dark universe. The deflector dish is at the top instead of on the secondary hull, and it doesn't, I mean, it seems to just be firing. It seems to be the primary weapon, as opposed to actually doing its job and deflecting. But we also see phaser lances, and we see phaser. We see torpedoes coming from higher up instead of in the neck. The nacelles seem completely different. The secondary hull seems reinforced, kind of like with a ribbed hull. It looks very, very different. And yeah, what we can see is it's absolutely beating the crap out of. It could be one cube, it could be two. This could be one here. This could be one here. But perhaps maybe this is the Borg's version of the Battle of War 359. Maybe this is the decimation of the Borg. And perhaps Thomas, to go back to your comment, maybe what Picard and the Confederation did is they did unleash a virus into the Borg collective, and then with their armada just went and absolutely wiped them out. Maybe this virus was designed to inhibit the Borg's ability to regenerate. Maybe it disconnected them from the hive mind, leaving them in this kind of discombobulated and very vulnerable position. Then the fleet goes in, just absolutely destroys them. And maybe this is even the conquering of Unimatrix 0 or Unimatrix 1. So yeah, lots of different things here, but just such a thing. You look at it for the first time and you go, wow, okay, this is, it looks at glance like the Enterprise that we know, but it's so different when you zoom in and see the details, and it's so alien from what we, and by extension Picard, know. It's very, very jarring. And it's strange because Q seems to be taking some enjoyment from these revelations. So all of these skulls, all of these victims killed by the same withering hand, by the most ruthless and bloodthirsty general of the Confederation of Earth. And that is Picard. Shocking stuff. Picard asks what this hellhole is, because I think that, what kind of question is left? What is this? What is this absolute hellhole? I love the question. And Q says that it's the only life that this Picard has known. And he offers him two choices: stay in the body of a madman and try, like Macbeth, to wash the blood from his hands. Another really good line, and obviously calling into Patrick Stewart's love of Shakespeare. Or the alternative is to seek atonement, or perhaps forgiveness. Q then says to Picard that he won't have to make him do it alone. Obviously, that's kind of teasing what we're going to see in the rest of this episode. But yeah, Q then suddenly disappears. Picard has more questions, but Q is gone. He's gone. And the synth Harvey enters. And Harvey asks Picard, if he's okay. Because I'm assuming Harvey's just... This is not the Picard that Harvey is used to dealing with either. But Picard says that he doesn't feel well, and he doesn't know who he is anymore. And I think, quite frankly, if you've just been presented with a gallery of some of the most famous people in the galaxy, all killed at your hands, I think that would cause a personal crisis. So I can't say I blame him. And that's it. That's the end of our opening sequence. So yeah, a lot to break down there. That whole sequence, very, very interesting. The thoughts being that this is a very different Q to any appearance that he's made before. There's urgency. There's this fear. There's this stress. And Q, Picard even says, you're not well. And to which we get no answer. So, speculation for a second. What if... We don't know what it is yet, but the spatial anomaly that we see in episode 1, the emergence of the Borg, the Borg Queen that's suing for peace and acceptance in the Federation. Is there a bigger threat that isn't just affecting, or isn't just threatening space that we know, but also Q's realm. What if the continuum has been affected by something? I don't know if it's a virus or if it's something more powerful than the Q. Can you imagine? But whatever is happening, it seems that Picard is directly linked, intrinsically linked to whatever is going on. And they've got to put it right. And as Q says, seek atonement and instead of spending a life in the body of this madman. Powerful stuff. I was aware that they were going to be doing something very different with John Delancey's Q. And when I first read those reports, I wasn't sure if I liked the sound of that. I didn't like the idea that they were going to potentially take this jester-like character who is so powerful he doesn't really care about anything and make him brooding and grungy and emo. I didn't like the sound of that, but it seems that there's a reason for this behavioral change. It seems that there's a reason that Q is acting the way he is, and hitting Picard as well is so shocking, so weird and alien to see. It's perhaps more shocking than the skulls that we saw in display, although they were something.